This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The province is making some big promises in its latest throne speech, outlining its plans for the next year. And it's all about building, from an overpass at a deadly intersection to a supervised site for drug users. The CBC's Ian Fraze joins us live in the newsroom. So, Ian, let's start with that intersection near Carberry.
There's been a big push for a big change, and now many of those people are getting what they want, an overpass. This despite the government initially saying traffic volumes weren't high enough to justify an overpass. Now, the intersection we're talking about is Trans-Canada and Highway 5, where a crash killed 17 people in 2023. The government initially proposed a unique redesign for the intersection, but pushback was fierce. Premier Wab Kinew says the community's thoughts weighed heavily on the decision.
This intersection is different now than any other intersection in Manitoba because of the loss of life and how sad it was to see those seniors passing away. And because this intersection is different with that scrutiny and that history, it means that we have that extra responsibility to listen to community voices on this.
On to another big promise. The government had previously scrapped plans for a supervised consumption site. So, Ian, what do we know about this new proposal?
Well, Kinew's promising this one will open soon, in January. The province still needs to file its application with Health Canada, but he expects the approvals to come quickly.
We've done a lot of consultation around the previous site. We'll have to do a bit more consultation on the new location once we share that. But other than those public process steps, this facility is ready to go, by and large.
And the throne speech was also heavy on healthcare promises. So, Ian, what stands out to you?
A lot, Brittany, and a lot here is new, but the details so far are sparse. A new law is planned to end sick notes. Employers will only be able to ask for one after an employee has been off work for 7 consecutive calendar days. Also, an end to mandatory overtime for healthcare workers. This would start with nurses, and staff-to-patient ratios will be legislated in priority areas. Kinew says that after 2 years of the NDP in power, there's now enough healthcare workers to not just stop the bleeding, but make the healthcare system better.
Premier, are there enough nurses now to end mandatory overtime?
Yes, that's why we're moving forward with this. We think we have a performance issue with our management in healthcare, and we need to push them further.
I think it's pretty wild for the Premier to say that we have enough nurses. I think it's pretty clear that we don't. Anyone who's visited a Manitoba hospital lately will tell you that.
Other healthcare commitments in the throne speech: you can get a digital version of your health card starting in January, and sometime next year, an online portal to access some of your healthcare information like lab results. Brittany.
All right, thank you. That's CBC's Ian Fraze. Well, that commitment to open a supervised consumption site doesn't come without controversy. The NDP had previously earmarked a site in Point Douglas, but the plan was scrapped after community pushback. Now the government says the province's first site could be up and running in just a few months. CBC's Alana Cole has more on that.
Our supervised consumption site will start operations in Winnipeg this January.
In Manitoba's throne speech, a timeline for a supervised consumption site. Addictions Minister Bernadette Smith says it's needed.
We see people using openly all over, whether it's in school grounds, they're driving down Main Street, whatever area you're in, you're seeing people use openly outside. And we want to make sure that people know about this site, that they can get inside, they can access primary health care, they can access mental health, they can get access to addiction supports.
Manitoba initially wanted the site at 200 Disraeli, but people in the area spoke out against having it there. The government won't say where the new location is, but the Premier says it's west of the initial site, close to organizations already providing services. He's confident they can open quickly.
Other than those public process steps, this facility is ready to go.
We had 4 tables set up.
Chuck Neufeld supports a place that tests drugs and makes sure people get medical help if they need it. He's an organizer of Gone Too Soon Backpacks from Heaven. They provide supplies to those experiencing homelessness. It's an idea that started with his son Sean and his girlfriend. Neufeld says they both died of an overdose.
I think it would give the people that are doing drugs, and I'm not a proponent of drug use, but I think it's important that these people that are taking drugs that are going to hopefully try to wean themselves off of it, they have a place that they can go, that they can trust the people that are in there to give them some advice and some help. That's 2025.
Neufeld says while more services are needed, the site is a step in the right direction. A spokesperson for Smith's office says they're opening an urgent public health needs site on a temporary basis. They're also submitting an application to the federal government to open permanently. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, as you heard, the province is also pledging to build a long push for overpass at a deadly intersection. In June 2023, a bus carrying a group of seniors crossed Highway 1 at Highway 5, colliding with a semi-trailer, killing 17 seniors. Now, after months of debate from community members, an overpass is getting the green light. CBC's Chelsea Kemp has more on that.
A memorial marks the site of the June 2023 crash that killed 17 people when their bus collided with a semi at the intersection of Highways 1 and 5. The tragedy spurred calls for safety upgrades at the intersection. Residents say they're relieved the province announced plans to build an overpass.
And, an overpass, roundabout, just a lane for the truckers. I don't care. Something needs to be done.
I think that's a great idea. There's been far too many accidents there, and being in an accident myself, I know how important safety is, and it's been a long time coming and well overdue.
The province had initially proposed an R-cut, a design that forced drivers to make a U-turn. But community members protested, saying it was dangerous and it didn't work for farming equipment. Deborah Steen helped organize protests. She says she's glad the province listened.
I think everybody is very happy and very surprised. We realize that it's a very expensive option. But again, I think it's time that we put the money into the infrastructure for rural areas, and it's a good place to start.
The Premier says the cost will be north of $100 million. Not worth it for some in Carberry.
Because it's just too much traffic when it comes to that. It's going to be kind of big to put something there, and it's going to be more costly to the taxpayers.
Mayor Ray Muirhead says he was surprised to see the province greenlight an overpass. He says enhancing the intersection honors those who lost their lives in 2023.
I hope they don't feel that it's in vain. If we get this because of that accident, it'll be in their memory.
Muirhead hopes construction starts sooner rather than later. The government says design work for the overpass will start next year. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Carberry.
A snack program that helps feed thousands of children every weekend is now expanding. While many students receive food during the week through the school nutrition program, Harvest Manitoba noticed a gap on weekends where kids were still going hungry. The Meals to Go program helped fill that void. It will be supporting 7,000 students in 19 schools across Manitoba. The nutrition kit includes healthy snack options like milk, yogurt, fruit, cheese, and granola bars, packed by volunteers and students. The goal? To make sure all kids have barrier-free access to healthy foods.
And when we bring a school on board, we ensure that every student in the school from K to 8 receives a bag. That ensures universality and makes sure that we don't stigmatize any kids that need the program.
The program began in 2018 with 350 students at Mulvey School. People in Steinbach might notice an increased security presence, and it won't be police officers, but private security guards patrolling the streets. It's part of a newly extended pilot project. Developers asked the city with help stopping theft and vandalism at construction sites. Steinbach Security Services says its mobile units have stopped more than 20 thefts at sites and added they will also be patrolling residential areas. The pilot will continue until the end of the year. All right, it was another lovely day out there. Let's bring in meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Colette.
Thanks, Brittany. After a largely very pleasant day, we do have a little bit of energy, a disturbance that's kind of pressing towards us. And as it's coming in, yes, some mixed precipitation. Now, mostly that temperature profile is above freezing, and that's why you're seeing the showers. There was a little bit of freezing rain through last night, early this morning, back towards Regina. So there's a chance we get a bit of freezing rain kind of mixing in there, but so light in nature as it comes towards Winnipeg. So 1 degree through much of the overnight, and then we'll slide down to 0 early tomorrow. But as that presses on through, we'll be drier then through the morning hours. However, I have to tell you that in the afternoon, as a cold front is sneaking through, a slim chance for a few showers, but showers it would be because our temperature up to 5 degrees. We'll take a look at what's going to be happening beyond that as we get towards mid and the end of the week when I come back.
All right, thanks, Colette. Changes at one of Canada's major airlines are leaving some Canadians grounded. Why they say they're being left behind. Next. WestJet's rule that bans some power wheelchairs from most of its planes is drawing criticism. The company says it's all over the weight of the chairs. But advocates and travelers say the policy is discriminatory and will leave those with disabilities grounded. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Stephen Fletcher has flown on airlines for more than a decade with a power wheelchair like this without any problems. That changed earlier this year. He was booking a flight with WestJet to Toronto when an agent said the wheelchair was too heavy. Fletcher used a different wheelchair for the trip, but it caused pain and pressure sores. He's filed a complaint with the Canadian Transportation Agency.
WestJet is blatantly discriminating against people with disabilities.
WestJet says it came up with a 300-pound limit for mobility aids and devices last year after an engineering analysis. It examined the maximum allowable weight limit per square inch for the cargo holds of its Boeing-made planes. The airline says in response to the complaint that accessibility regulations allow it to refuse transport of heavier mobility aids, and says it followed all laws and regulations. The rule is drawing criticism from advocates.
300 pounds is quite typical, and often they weigh more than that. So unless the intention is to prevent disabled people from flying, they've really missed the mark here.
Toronto-based lawyer Devin Glim says the weight cap should be looked at in a human rights context.
It's not this time doesn't account for the news of individuals.
Meanwhile, Fletcher wants the rule scrapped and hopes others don't go through the same situation. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The city is already clearing out homeless encampments in parts of Winnipeg. 2 sites flagged as high priority have already been cleaned up. It comes less than 24 hours after the new enforcement policy took effect, banning tents near places like schools and playgrounds. CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
You might not be able to tell, but this lot at the corner of Pacific and Ellen held one of Winnipeg's dozens of homeless encampments. This is what it looked like on Monday, the first day the city's restrictions on encampments went into force. The city says bylaw officers and outreach workers moved people staying here into housing. Greg McPherson, the city's acting director of community development, says the transformation of the site was dramatic.
There was at least 1 full load taken to the landfill, and I believe another half load from that same site. So there was a substantial amount of material on site, and that's after people took their personal belongings with them.
Crews also cleared a camp here behind the Montana's restaurant on Empress Street near Omans Creek. The city's new rules prohibit tents within 50 meters of places like schools, playgrounds, or daycares, and 30 meters from transit shelters, docks, and bridges. McPherson says the city plans to approach enforcement with compassion.
I have a great deal of empathy for folks who are living in encampments. These are people who are surviving. But at the same time, we have to balance that with our responsibility to the public to maintain these important public spaces.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says the first day of enforcement went as planned, and he expects the process to continue site by site.
The goal is to return those spaces to the public so families have confidence that they can use the playground, but at the same time, the people who have been living in a tent there can get into housing.
The city already has a list of other high priority sites it plans to target for enforcement. It's not saying where those sites are ahead of time, but city staff have already started putting up signs like this, letting people know that camping is prohibited. Enforcement will continue over the coming weeks. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Student athletes in Grunthal will soon be able to compete in their own school gym. A groundbreaking for the expansion of Green Valley School was held today. Basketball and volleyball players at the grade 5 to 12 school had been playing out of the town's elementary school because their gym was too small. The principal says the expansion has been 13 years in the making. She says the $14.6 million investment is important in the small town.
The school, the arena, these are cornerstone to all of the activities that happen outside of the church communities and so forth. And so this has been absolutely a grand opportunity for our community to come together.
The school is also adding 3 classrooms, science labs, and new rooms for performing arts. It's expected to be done by November 2027, and there'll be enough space for 550 students. Shoal Lake has been without a doctor since 2022, but a recently hired nurse practitioner for the community will help fill the void. It's one of 4 new nurse practitioners recruited by Prairie Mountain Health. They will help ease some of the growing workload in a number of areas, including Melita and Rossburn, as well as at the Brandon Minor Injury and Illness Clinic and the Dauphin Primary Care Outreach Clinic. The health region says nurse practitioners fill gaps in care, especially in rural communities.
They function just as the family physician would in the community. They can work completely autonomously. They can prescribe and order blood work and lab work and those things. So it's a hugely valuable role.
She says the health authority is working with 6 students who could begin working in the region next fall. All right, as we said, a beautiful day, but is cold on the way? Let's check in with meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Colette.
Thanks, Brittany. Yeah, I know we had that increase in cloudiness as was in the forecast, but still just have some of these mild temperatures well above seasonal, and to continue on in this kind of frame is pretty good. And we're going to do that for at least a little while longer. So we do have this risk of some perhaps light mixed precipitation. I was mentioning earlier in the show, we'll get into that a little bit more. It's some snowfall again to the north, but also moving pretty quickly. So should be light in nature. I'd say less than 5 centimeters, and down the pike, meaning as we press, not in the short term, but really long range towards the end of the month, it does look like we'll be getting into a push of much colder air coming our way. We don't have to think about that yet, but just giving you the heads up about that. We'll be getting back to reality as we move towards the end of November. But checking out some of the daytime highs around the region and what we were looking at. A little cooler in Winnipeg than I thought we were going to get to, but still not bad. Keeping it above freezing, meaning this energy that's moving through, you can see where we get to freezing or below. We do have some what's likely more wet snow, but pressing through a little bit of mixed precipitation and then some showers. But do you see how little there is here, how light that is in nature? And then this is the cold front following in behind. So with that, that's why we get kind of a break, and then it'll be tomorrow. This is 7 a.m. Tomorrow into the afternoon, we'll bring back that chance for getting into some showers, and there's some of that snow coming through Flin Flon, the Pas, towards Thompson. But again, a couple of centimeters to maybe 4 or 5 should be about it to expect with that, as that area of low pressure takes shape, and then a ridge of high pressure is building in behind, but kind of pressing southward. So that means Thursday's setup is a very nice day. Friday, mostly, but we will get some clouds in there from time to time, so some more variable skies coming at us there. So 8 a.m. tomorrow, 0, mostly cloudy. Noon, we should be up to that 4 degrees with a light southerly flow, but into the afternoon, about a 30% chance of getting some scattered showers as that temperature rises up to a high of 5 degrees. And then looking beyond that, as we break it down further, there's a lovely day on Thursday, a little cooler, still above seasonal, and all of that sunshine. Friday looking good too, although somewhat variable, and the weekend certainly isn't anything to complain about. It's as we get towards Monday, some colder air is coming in, and I'll fill you in on those details coming up.
All right, thanks, Colette. We have much more to come right after the break. Stay with us. November cold typically means the start of snowbird season for many Canadians. However, this year, fewer Canadians are making the trek down south since President Donald Trump was re-elected. The declining snowbird population is having an impact on many local businesses. Julia Wong has more from Florida.
The Sunshine State is a popular place for Canadian snowbirds in the winter, but that relationship has been changing with ongoing trade tensions and comments about Canada becoming the 51st state. Last year, Canadians made up about 27% of international visitors to Florida, but visitor numbers are down this year, down 20% in the second quarter alone. Many Canadians are rethinking their travel plans, including Joanne Rowe. The Toronto woman retired 10 years ago and would spend 3 months in Florida every year. But earlier this year, she began to rethink her travel plans, citing friction between Canada and the United States. Now she plans to spend her winter in Mexico.
My little thing to do was change my winter vacation as a snowbird. As long as the politics are the way they are, and there's tariffs on Canada, and we're trying to protect Canada economically, I don't want to go back.
Businesses here say they're noticing a difference. They're seeing fewer Canadians walk through the door. Statistics show significantly fewer Canadians are visiting Florida, and businesses are feeling it.
We're all concerned about what's going on right now. You know, they will come, but not everybody will come. We're aware of that. To what extent, we still don't know.
It's been a significant drop financially. Hotel stays, we have empty hotel rooms that usually are filled by Canadians. It makes me feel very sad, and we miss them.
Some Florida businesses are trying to woo Canadians back, and they're also trying to attract other international visitors to make up for the loss of business from Canadians. Contingency plans as the snowbird season here gets underway. Julia Wong, CBC News, Hollywood, Florida.
New cancer numbers in this country show progress is stalling when it comes to eliminating cervical cancer. CBC's Lauren Pelly looks at the concerning trend and what doctors say needs to change.
It's often treatable, even preventable, yet cervical cancer still remains a threat. A new report shows after 2 decades of falling rates, progress has stalled to close to zero.
It's not a surprise.
This physician warns it could jeopardize Canada's commitment to wipe out cervical cancer by 2040. She says doctor shortages and screening backlogs are partly to blame.
We don't have enough family doctors. We need to find new ways to get people screened.
Hundreds of Canadians are expected to die this year alone. The disease is almost always caused by a high-risk form of human papillomavirus, or HPV.
It took so much away from me.
Shannon Pethick hadn't had a screening test in close to a decade when she got diagnosed at the age of 32. She endured chemotherapy and 2 forms of radiation.
It's one of the hardest things I've ever gone through, and I'm grateful that I came out the other side. But I wouldn't wish what I went through on anybody.
The Canadian Cancer Society is now pushing for a switch away from the standard Pap test to one specifically for HPV. That test is less frequent and more accurate. But so far, those screening programs are only being offered in certain parts of the country, while BC is the first province to fully fund HPV self-test kits that people can do at home.
And the final piece of this puzzle is the vaccination.
Advocates want the HPV shot to be free for everyone, since adults who miss the vaccine during school-aged immunization programs often have to pay hundreds out of pocket.
So we're looking for provinces and territories to make the move towards what we call a once eligible, always eligible vaccine policy.
The science is clear. HPV shots work. One study in Scotland found 0 cases of invasive cervical cancer among women vaccinated in their early teens.
Eliminate cervical cancer in Scotland.
Multiple countries are on track to eliminate this disease by 2040, if not sooner. Advocates say if they can do it, so can Canada. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
It's been a dramatic day in the U.S. Capitol, where lawmakers moved at breakneck speed to pass a legislation ordering the full Epstein files to be released. First, the House of Representatives voted profoundly in favor of the bill. Then, in a couple of hours, the Senate passed it as well, unanimously, leaving it to President Donald Trump now to sign. Chris Reyes has more.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1.
In a near unanimous vote, Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly supported a bill to compel the U.S. Justice Department to release all files related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. The convicted sex offender died in jail in 2019, awaiting trial on more charges of sex trafficking and prostitution. Pressure has been mounting on President Donald Trump to make good on his campaign promise to release all files, including more recently from the most loyal members of his party and from his MAGA base. Trump recently called Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene a traitor after she became one of the most vocal supporters of the bill. Greene has since turned on Trump and praised the bipartisan effort to support Epstein's victims.
These men crossed that aisle on behalf of these women. And that is more of what is needed today in America than ever in our history.
Victims of Epstein and their families spoke outside the Capitol before the vote and were in the gallery when the bill passed. One of the speakers, the brother of Virginia Giuffre, who was one of Epstein's most prominent accusers. She died by suicide earlier this year.
A warrior, a mother, and a sister whose legacy will forever resonate in the hearts of those who understand the fight against injustice.
Trump has repeatedly denied any involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, calling the growing attention to release the files a distraction and a Democrat hoax. Still, in a surprise move, he gave the green light for his party to support the bill on Sunday after fighting hard against it.
We have nothing to hide here. I'm voting to release the files so that we can move on from this smear campaign the Democrats have manufactured. God bless
Gentleman's
Donald J.
time has
Trump.
expired.
President Trump says if the bill lands on his desk, he will sign it. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Israel's military says one Israeli has been killed and 3 others wounded in an attack by Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. It happened at the site of many past attacks by Palestinian militants and follows a spate of violence by Israeli settlers against Palestinians in the region. Tom Perry has the latest from Jerusalem.
This attack targeting Israelis in the West Bank is just the latest incident of violence there. Israeli police and the military are saying this was a ramming and stabbing attack, so that these attackers, 2 of them, drove a vehicle into pedestrians, and then at least one of them went out and started stabbing victims. Police and the military say that both attackers were killed by security officials on the scene. Again, though, this is just the latest incident of violence in the West Bank. This has been targeting Israelis, but what we've been seeing is Israeli settlers targeting Palestinians in the West Bank. We saw attacks just yesterday near Bethlehem, cars being burned, homes being attacked, Palestinians being attacked, and last week we saw really a mass arson attack by masked settlers going into other villages, attacking homes, attacking factories, burning vehicles, and again, attacking people. Now, this is all coming as the United Nations Security Council has voted to endorse a peace plan for Gaza. That peace plan from Donald Trump. Part 2 of that plan, though, calls for a demilitarization of Gaza, for a board of peace chaired by Trump to oversee a transitional government, and for an international stabilization force to go into Gaza to provide security. Now, we heard the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations after the vote yesterday congratulating the UN on its move.
The United States sponsored resolution on Gaza that does something we haven't seen in generations. It provides a real, actionable pathway to lasting peace for Palestinians and Israelis.
But there are still questions about how this is all going to unfold. Chief among them, this idea of an international stabilization force. Its role will be to demilitarize Gaza. But to demilitarize Gaza, Hamas is going to have to lay down its weapons. And so far, the group has not given any indication it plans to do that. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A powerful atmospheric river drenched much of California over the weekend, leaving at least 6 people dead. The southern part of the state has suffered significant damage from the downpour. In San Diego, a gas station canopy collapsed, and in Palm Springs, vehicles remain trapped in mud. Some Los Angeles communities recently devastated by the wildfires are still at risk of mudslides. And the National Weather Service is warning residents of potential flash floods. Another storm is expected to douse the state on Thursday. A French court has rejected a case against Perrier Mineral Water. A consumer group brought the case forward, asking for the Nestlé-owned brand to be recalled over what it alleged was deceptive marketing. It argued the mineral water could not be described as, quote, natural, since it underwent a purifying process. The courts decided there is no evidence of an urgent health risk to justify pulling it off the shelves. Parent company Nestlé said it regrets the use of the treatment and has switched to microfiltration, which it says is safe. But the consumer group suggests there still could be potential health risks. The King and Queen of Sweden are in Canada for a 3-day state visit. King Carl Gustaf and Queen Sylvia were welcomed at the Governor General's residence and later laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. They also stopped by Parliament Hill, where they met with the Prime Minister and other government officials. The royals are traveling with a delegation of Swedish ministers on this visit, as well as business leaders from dozens of Swedish companies. From space to store shelves, Chris Hadfield stops by to chat about his new book and his message to youngsters. That's next. All right, time now for what many of our viewers tune in for, the dog walking forecast. Let's check in with meteorologist Colette Kennedy.
Hey, thanks, Brittany. Just having a look at the big picture here of what's going on. We do have a ridge of high pressure here. You can see the clearer skies. That's going to be kind of pressing southward. We have some energy moving through right now, giving mixed precipitation, a little snow to the north, some milder temperatures above freezing there, if not quite as warm as hoped for today in Winnipeg, but still above freezing there. So some lighter showers, and then in between we can get some mix. And as the temperatures are sliding down into the later evening and early overnight hours as this is pressing towards us. So very light in nature. There was a bit of freezing rain I had mentioned last night in Regina, and also again some fog. We could see that in western Manitoba, a little bit of patchy fog again, freezing rain. The potential is there, but not likely to be meeting the warning criteria, but we can certainly update you on that if that changes. So a look at your forecast for tonight and some of these mild temperatures, but really close to freezing or just below. And that's why even if it's not freezing on contact, we could also see a situation with some very wet kind of flurries coming down. And then further north, we've got a disturbance that's going to be pressing towards you, really more so into tomorrow, where we get into a chance of another batch of snow. Pretty quick moving, just like we had with the last round, but with it 2 to 4, maybe even 5 centimeters of snowfall possible in there from essentially Flin Flon towards Thompson as it's moving through. And then checking out what's happening for you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. I'm not sure we'll quite be to 3 degrees in Winnipeg. We'll say we'll be getting there though, and up to a high of 5. We do have quite a bit of cloud cover, and as a cold front comes through into the afternoon, as it passes, it will shift our winds around to the west. And not only that, it provides a bit of lift, so we could have a few scattered showers in the afternoon for eastern parts and southeastern parts of the province as that's going through. I did want to just give you a heads up that as we're moving, this is towards the weekend, end of the weekend, we'll kind of see those temperatures leveling off, still above seasonal, but then they are going to start to dip. It'll be just a cold shot. Much colder air is coming, but that will be more so towards the end of the month, where we get back to seasonal or even a bit below. Okay, of course, with the Jets in action tonight, we've got Jesse, clearly a Jets fan. Beautiful face there from Haley and Devin, and a quick look at your dog walking forecast and what you can expect. I do think that any of that light mixed precipitation tonight likely gone by the morning, so you've got a green paw there, and I only put the yellow one at the end of the day. A little caution, maybe grab an umbrella or a rain slicker. It'll be 5 degrees, but we could have a few sprinkles here and there. Brittany?
All right, thanks, Colette. Well, he's worn many hats throughout his life and had careers many people can only dream of. Commander Chris Hadfield has lived a life out of this world, quite literally. But since his return from space, he's added author to his resume. He stopped by to speak with me about his latest book, Final Orbit, and the words of wisdom he has for others looking to live life to the fullest. Commander Colonel Chris Hadfield, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Another best-selling book here, getting great reviews. I want to start with the beginning of it, where it really says that many of the people are real and much of this actually happened. So what are the challenges with trying to weave these real events with the imaginary and make it cohesive?
I love it when I'm reading a book and I can't tell what's made up and what's real, where it all just sort of seems like a completely real thing that might have happened. And I work really hard when I write my fiction books to build that entire bubble of disbelief. And I set this book in the summer of 1975 when there were an amazing number of kind of crazy world events going on. Cold War, end of the Nixon presidency coming apart, bombings all across the United States, race riots, the rise of the Chinese space program, and then this peaceful flight between the Soviets and the Americans to try and show that they could cooperate even in times of the Cold War. So to me, that gave me all these things to pull from, and then I could weave my complicated and little tension-filled plot in amongst all of that. But in the back of the book, I put a like an author's notes, so you can find out, oh, that was real, oh, that was real, that was a real person, I didn't know that. It makes it like a bunch of Easter eggs you discover while you read it.
I did take a look at the back of that because it was interesting to be able to see, oh, okay. And some of these people you actually knew. So did that make it difficult?
Yeah, I know most of people in the astronaut business. I got to know pretty much everybody who went to the moon. I'm of the right vintage to have met them at the end of their careers and the start of mine, and all the current astronauts. And I've flown 3 different spaceships myself and been to a couple space stations. And so I think it gives me a real lucky position to write these books because I don't have to phone people to check things. I'm lucky enough to either have done them myself or know the people that did them. It's part of my objective in the book as well, is to not just tell the story, but to give the reader a true visceral sense of what is it actually like to fly a rocket ship, to float weightless, to go around the world, to be outside on a spacewalk, to have things go terribly wrong when you're so far from home, and how do people actually react. And I've been through a lot of that, and so I do my best to bring that realism into the book.
So you think it's really changed the way people that have come after you as astronauts have looked at this, the accessibility that you gave people, the pictures that you put on social media to give everybody a glimpse of what home looked like from so far away?
Today when I was flying here from Toronto, I had multiple people on the airplane come up and say hello, which is nice. Almost all of them thanking me for the influence that they had on their kids, which, I mean, it's hard to have a bigger compliment than that. That someone you've never met say, hey, you don't know me at all, but let me just tell you how important the role and the example that you set was in the choices that my children are making, or what they think is exciting in life. And gosh, it's lovely to hear that because it's heartwarming, but at the same time, it's kind of reinvigorating for me. I need to conduct myself accordingly, but at the same time, it's nice to get that feedback that all of the risks that I took and the decades of work that I put in have that type of one-on-one, personal, tangible, positive effect. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
And you've been able to draw on so much of that experience as you move through different chapters of your life. Was there anything that you look back on now and you go, I can't believe I did that? Almost everything in my life. I mean, my wife and I had a sleepover at Windsor Castle with Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. You know, we get an email from the Queen saying, hey, we'd like you to come for a sleepover at the castle. You're like, how can that possibly be? And even when it happens and you just get to meet those people and their dogs and have dinner together and get to see what it's like. My life is like these weird, disconnected little vignettes, all of them surreal. You know, doing Canada's first spacewalk or commanding a spaceship. I'm only Canadian in history to have commanded a spaceship. It's just a reality of my own life. But at the same time, yeah, I'm bruised from pinching myself. What do you say to those kids now who look at you and you know, you've had more than one career that only people could dream of? I take speaking with young people very seriously, and I do it a lot. On the way here today, I was phoning with a young lady who's thinking of maybe joining the Air Force, and she was just curious about what that would be like and what she needed to do. There were lots of times in my life I wish I could have spoken to someone who had more experience than I did, trying to make a big decision in my life, but kind of just stepping off into the void because I didn't know. And so I recognize with the great privilege that I've had comes also the responsibility of it. And so I try and reinforce to young people the huge opportunities that exist right now. And the fact that you can make big changes in yourself just by taking responsibility for all the little choices that you make every day. All the little decisions, you know, it's just a little decision. That's all you ever get, are just the little decisions. So learning that you can take responsibility for your own decision making, and that can turn you into somebody else, you know, over weeks and months and years, that you can actually deliberately
turn yourself into someone who's closer to what you dream of. To me, that's one of the big lessons that I've learned in my life, and I'm constantly still tinkering with that. But I think it's also a really important lesson for other people to internalize and maybe rethink then, what am I going to do tonight? What am I going to do this weekend? And how is that supporting what I really dream will happen in my life? I try and help as many people see those ideas so that perhaps they can accomplish things that are really important to them.
Perfect. Commander Hadfield, thank you for your time.
Great to see you again, and thanks for having me on, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the book.
I'm very excited. I'm partway through. A couple more chapters to go.
Tension till the end. It's a fun book.
Tension till the end. Still ahead, Colette Kennedy is back with a last check on our forecast. Stay with us. A team of British scientists has dug up a fin whale skull 5 years after it was buried in southwestern England. The 20-meter fin whale died in 2020 after it was stranded on a beach. Researchers decided to bury the carcass as that's the most natural way of cleaning the bones. Excavators use special equipment, including an industrial vacuum machine, to get it out of its 2-meter hole. The research team plans to display the whale head as a memorial in a local community.
Welcome back. A chance to take another look at that 5-day forecast and even the 7 days, and really through the period. We continue to be treated to temperatures above seasonal. Daytime high tomorrow up to 5 degrees, in fact, but still looking pretty good with that sunshine Thursday and Friday. I do just want to point out as we get towards the end of a good-looking weekend that we do have a chance for some cooler air. This is still not as cold. I mean, we should be seeing overnight lows around -11, -12 by the time we get here, and we're still going to be talking about temperatures mild through the overnight, but it is cooler. A shot of cooler air there gives us even a chance to get into some light snow as we press through the day on Tuesday. Brittany?
Thanks, Colette. An 8-year-old's knack for business started because he was bored. Now he's using his new merch to raise money to help more kids get a chance to play hockey. This young entrepreneur is our Daily Lift.
I was getting tired of getting dragged to the rink because I had to watch my brother's games because my season hasn't started. I was really mad because I didn't like to go to a rink. And then I told my mom I'm a rink dude.
I have 3 boys. And so even if 2 boys have a tournament, that's a lot of games. And he kind of broke down and just was like, I'm just a rink dude. Would you be happy, Mom, if you were just a rink dude? So I told the other hockey moms, I said, what is a rink dude? Luke is upset he's calling rink dude. And they said, you should make a hat that says rink dude for him. And it started to snowball into an idea where we could actually sell them and raise money for kids who can't afford to play.
I came up with the hats and the wax and the tennis balls. I know how fun the sport is, and it's really expensive too. We made a brand, and that's how it all started.
Incredible job, Rink Dude. That's all for us here tonight. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.